Welcome back. On foreign policy, I have been very critical of Biden because the mediocrity of the Biden administration on foreign policy level the ground on which Trump is now trying to build his madman theory policy. And this time I would like to talk about China, which is with Ukraine the main issue on American foreign policy, in my opinion. Biden absurdly and consistently pushed Xi Jinping towards Putin, following Jake Sullivan's stupid ideas. I have mentioned this many times in previous videos, so I'm not going to repeat myself here because this video is more about what to do from now on. In truth, she had no interest in a Ukraine war. One of its top grain suppliers was Ukraine, what is in line with its policy of diversifying suppliers. Let's remember its appeal to energy from Central Asia instead of Russia, so they don't depend on specifically anyone. Russia or much less in the case of Russia in this case, much less Russia. And this issue gets particular relevance because right now China needs the West more than they need Russia to battle an entrenched deflation that has been made worse by Xi's economic policies, and yet they are siding with Russia because of geopolitical reasons. And this comes with the unfortunate side effect of China providing Putin a lifeline that allows him to keep the Ukraine war going when cutting such lifeline could end the war in a matter of months and probably weeks. Let's not forget that the conflicts created by Russia, especially the Ukraine war, is affecting China's plans for the global south and even diminishing its leverage over North Korea. So Russia have reasons to be unhappy with Putin, and yet instead of taking advantage of those reasons, we are pushing Xi Jinping to Putin's arms. As mentioned, the war is uh, is right now between the United States and China, and as they try to get a clear idea of what would be to align their foreign policy in a yuan zone instead of a dollar zone, they have the more concerning scenario of the effects of Russia's intervention in the Sahel. This is another consideration that is concerning for China because one nicer idea is to see themselves as part of Road and Belt, and the other is to see themselves as ruled by uh, petty dictators as it is happening in the Sahel, in which cases in which Russian intervention has deteriorated the lives of the most vulnerable. And yet, Biden failed to come with a new China narrative in fear of being called weak on China by Republicans, and as a consequence, he became weak on China. He failed to take advantage of these cracks between the partners of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and even worse, when he was not making things even worse by selling weapons to Taiwan. And this is worth mentioning because different from Ukraine and the no war game scenario, those cells would make any difference if China decided to invade the island. Besides, China's excess capacity won't go away by itself. It has to be tackled to prevent what has been called the nuclear option. It has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has to do with a massive depreciation of the yuan that would allow them to dump their exports in other markets, and that would hurt initiatives like Road and Belt. Yes, it would, but it's better than seeing the economy collapse because the China so far has been unable to reverse its deflation. So, and then the world will have to consider whether it's still better to align with China, despite the economic hurt the cheap exports are making, or where are we better staying with the Trump's United States whims and arbitrariness, which also lead to other kinds of economic harm. And yet that this is not the worst option. The worst option is the military option, where China has no other way to revive their economy but military spending, which would imply what Krugman called foreign adventurism, either by invading Taiwan or by openly supporting Putin's adventures. And I don't know honestly if we are still in time to tackle both issues, but even if it's difficult, we should try. At least give the world, China, and other countries the impression that we will try in 2029, the Democrats will try in 2029 when they come back to power, which implies an express and clear divorce from Jake Sullivan's stupid ideas. So we have to tackle both issues, China's overcapacity and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And both could be tackled with a trade issue that also forced China to address their economic woes with the right policies, which imply stimulated internal demand, something that absurdly China has resisted to do so far. Democrats have to make that clear today if they want to be relevant in 2029, and yet they are still silent. They are still unable to present an alternative, even though they have a great historical precedent in FDR, who created the rule system that provides us many years of reasonable peace after the Second World War. No surprise, Trump is now building on those defective policies and using tariffs and extortion to undo Road and Belt. So, and let me be clear, Road and Belt is not the military imposition like Russia in the African Sahel. It's a kind of soft power, like the soft power the United States did through US aid or foreign investment. So let's not either demonize Road and Belt. The alternative to Road and Belt is not to end Road and Belt. The alternative to Road and Belt is to create our own Road and Belt. So the relevant question is, are Democrats willing to present a new China narrative that conveys to the international actors like China, Russia, Europe, that they can trust Democrats to have a role a constructive role if they come back to power in 2029. So we have, without having to deal with another Biden, or these actors must consider that their options are only Trump's madman theory or a yuan song where Putin is Xi Jinping's senior partner and creates instability not only in our relations with China, but also in the nuclear balance and the food market, not to mention the energy market, if they get Saudi Arabia to align with this bloc. So these are the questions the Democrats have to answer now in order to be credible, to be considered an option for 2029. Because one thing is considered for a country, let's say Europe, or let's say Germany, Europe, that they have to have a policy to hold the line until we get the United States get a better government. And another thing is to consider that that's going to be the position of the United States, whether they have a Democratic or Republican president, because the Democratic president is going to be another Biden, obsessed or being called weak by their friends on the other side of the aisle. And having said that, let me leave you with our newscast.
Good evening. This is Brian Thomas Simons, and these are the main headlines of this hour. Among other news,
New 166 executive decisions were released last Friday, among them, 1. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem won't be called or in any other way designated as Homeland Security's mascot, ridiculed for placing herself in memorable historic events with basic image editors or with any kind of image editors, or making cosplay related to the aforementioned patriotic landmark events. 2. State Secretary Little Marco was called back from the Maldives to Washington to say that the U.S. could move on if there is no end in sight to the war in Ukraine, while the minerals and energy deal with that country is still under discussion. Asked about Secretary Rubio's declarations, President Trump confessed, "I couldn't help myself, but it's always funny to see Secretary Little Marco make an ass of himself." 3. Former Washington Post White House reporter Cleavar Wootson Jr., who was subsequently fired from the Washington Post and the Washington Afro-American by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, was also fired from his own YouTube channel by Secretary Leavitt after DNC Secretary Ken Martin criticized the reporter for questioning the spelling of Elon Musk's first name in DNC's recent campaign. "Elian is not cool," which Martin attributed to his racism and misogyny. B. Minority Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, who recently voted for a continuing resolution that allows President Trump, at his discretion, move funds regardless of appropriations voted by Congress, declared that it was a coincidence that the website showing the apportionments, the use of those appropriations, was down. If President Trump and Director Russell Vought say that it's normal, we must trust our president. Not doing so would be profoundly impolite, and we, as Democrats, as Biden with Prime Minister Netanyahu, must always appeal to the better angels of our friends on the other side of the aisle. And remember, we won't rest. We will win. We will win. See, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. After refusing for weeks to leave his leadership position as a result of his vote for the Republican continuing resolution that gave President Trump extraordinary powers over the budget, endorsed Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer for Minority Leader. The first time I considered her for my position was when she supported some of Trump's tariffs without demanding anything in return. But after watching her being embarrassed in front of the cameras, I made my decision. It's reassuring to know there are still Democrats willing to continue our tradition of caving and retreating to Republicans. The party is in good hands, added Senator Schumer. D. Senator Booker, after a 25-hour stand against Trump, gets no specific concession but breaks the Guinness record for a 6-pound diaper that attracted clouds of flies. Yes. The smell and the flies were a nuisance for our fellow senators in the upper chamber, but we made a stand that has gained thousands of likes on TikTok. Our senator broke the Guinness record for the heaviest diaper filled during a filibuster. Later, we were informed that that was not really a filibuster and that no specific concessions were obtained after Senator Booker's feat, but, hey, what counts as the likes in TikTok, concluded DNC Chair Ken Martin. Hundreds of Trump supporters gather outside the offices of the United States Attorney in D.C. Far from being outraged at the loss of their savings, the MAGA militants were demanding more $Trump meme coins. I sold my house and my mom's house to buy more $Trump, and they told us they no longer in circulation because small investors have lost their capital. Fancy liberal words we don't care about. We want more. We want more, demanded one MAGA supporter. Tensions end at the Federal Reserve. After Fed Chair Powell refused to agree to President's demands to reduce interest rates, he was unceremoniously fired and replaced by President Trump's son Don Jr. and Eric. Nowhere does it say that there can't be two chairs. And I have already pardoned Donnie and Eric for the bodies buried in the White House gardens between 2017 and 2021. I have even pardoned them proactively for all crimes they might commit for the next 100 years, just like me. So Congress should approve the appointment by Monday. Schumer has already agreed to vote for them, declared President Trump off the record, as the official announcement is expected next Monday. New executive decision names Russian President Vladimir Putin, not J.D. Vance, as direct successor for U.S. presidency in case President Trump can't complete his term. According to an executive decision little known in the United States, the direct successor for the presidency would be Russian President Vladimir Putin, not J.D. Vance. Astonished by the news, reporters asked Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer whether Democrats were expected to challenge the presidential decision in the courts, to which Senator Schumer declared that that would be impolite. As Democrats, it's our duty to support our president, especially if we consider that an enemy of the American people might end up in the White House. After President Trump declared that he is considering ways to serve a third term as president, State Secretary Little Marco could be seen with wet eyes, emotional. "We are going to witness history," he declared before returning to the Maldives. Approached by reporters, Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer could be seen with wet eyes, emotional. "We are going to witness history," declared the senator before adding, "As a Democrat, I will condemn him with words that are viral on TikTok, but, as a Democrat, it's my duty to give him my vote without even demanding the smallest concession. Besides, I don't know why you are always asking me things like this and ignoring our campaigns. Like our campaign Elon Musk is not cool, and our campaign in favor of Rachel Zegler's Snow White movie. I lured to the White House with the promise of a minerals deal that would respect Ukraine's sovereignty over its own resources. President Zelensky was unexpectedly ambushed and sent to Moscow in a cage. Instantly, President Trump's popularity inside the Republican Party jumped to 99%. Lindsey Graham was seen emotionally praising President Trump's patriotism. Meanwhile, unable to agree on a response, Senator Schumer and DNC Chair Ken Martin decided to join the celebrations in the White House to show the Democratic Party's commitment to bipartisanship and good manners. A man who was arrested for the second time in Quincy, Illinois, for breaking into a barn and lying with the horses with his genitals exposed sued the local police department because his pronouns were not asked at the moment of the arrest and because the arresting officers refused to take seriously his claim that he was a furry who perceived himself as a horse. With respect to the lewd acts he was caught practicing on the horses, he alleged they were natural, since at the moment, Blake was perceiving himself as a horse. As a result of a settlement, Jack R. Blank, 39, will receive $100,000 from Adams County, and the arresting officers will be put on administrative leave and will have to go through gender sensitivity training.
This has been the news of this hour. sponsored by Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit. Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior? Did you vote for Trump in 2016 and then in 2020? This is the right church for you. If so, Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit is the only Christian church that can promise you in the Lord to have 72 virgins in heaven for only a donation of $50 a month. You will have access to those 72 virgins in heaven. For an additional $25, you will be allowed to replace 10 of them, and for $100, Heaven Premium, you will be allowed to choose them for yourself. Guaranteed, if you're not satisfied with those 72 virgins after you die, full refund of your money. We accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover.